Nothing like a little bit of coffee to get you going. So I hope you guys are doing well today. Today we're going to talk a little bit about moon phases, and we're going to take some notes on this, so make sure you have plenty of room to roam. Give yourself some space if you need to pause the video. It's going to be a little bit in detail, but it's good information, and it's stuff that will help carry you through a lot for the rest of this chapter. So make sure that you kind of give yourself, don't try to crunch this information in one space. Give yourself room on the paper to spread out, and you should do just fine. So, when we talk about moon phases, okay, the deal is, and I don't want to insult your intelligence by suggesting this, but the reason why we see the moon is because the moon is reflecting light from the sun. The moon is not giving off its own light. It doesn't have its own source of energy, so it's not going to produce that light for itself. It's going to reflect light from the sun. Now, what might be surprising is that the lunar surface, even though it looks pretty bright from Earth, is actually kind of a dull surface. It's just that the sunlight through the atmosphere makes it exceptionally bright as viewed from Earth. That light that is reflected from the sun, we're going to call the amount of illumination. Okay, so we're going to kind of walk you through a couple of these phases here of the moon, and I want to have you do this. Now, I want you just to draw these, okay? If you don't want to write out the word, the definition, don't do so, just draw it, okay? And you'll see what I mean by this in a second. So if I have a full moon, means the entire side of the moon facing Earth is illuminated. Now, the far side is all in shadow for a full moon, but the side facing us is completely illuminated for a full moon. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to draw a circle here, and we're going to leave that totally white, totally clear, which indicates that it's going to be illuminated. We're not going to do a darn thing to it. This would indicate for us symbolically that it is a full moon. For a new moon, there's no part of the moon facing Earth that is illuminated. Now, when this occurs, this means that the far side of the moon is completely illuminated, because that's going to be the side facing the sun. For a new moon, to indicate that none of it is illuminated, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shade in this entire sphere. It's indicating that, hey, this whole thing is in shadow. We're not going to see a bit of this moon illuminated. And so that's what I want you to do, is just make a drawing here next to the word new moon, indicate that no part of that is illuminated. Now bear in mind that when we see a new moon, that half of the moon will always be illuminated, but from Earth's perspective, we're not going to see it. We are only seeing this side of the moon. The far side of the moon over here, well, in this case, yeah, the far side of the moon is going to be completely lit up. Oops. So if we have a crescent moon, it means that less than half the side of the moon facing Earth is illuminated. It is still, at any given point, guys, half of the moon is illuminated. It's only the portion that is facing Earth. So I could draw this crescent moon on either side. I'm going to draw it on the right-hand side here for a second. And the way I'm going to represent that it's a crescent moon, and sometimes kids get this backwards, and I don't quite know why, I'm going to shade in the part that is not illuminated and leave the part that is illuminated. So this would represent for us a crescent moon. I could have put this on the left. I put it on the right. Looks like a crescent. So it's pretty accurately named. Now, quarter moon might seem, and if I'm going too fast, guys, just pause the video so you can get it down. A quarter moon, sometimes people might think it's misnamed because people would say, hey, I'm seeing half the moon illuminated. Well, it's a quarter moon for two reasons. One is that you can divide up the moon's revolution around the Earth into 4 different parts, and each part would represent 1/4 of the revolution. But also, you're really seeing half of a moon, because you only see half of the moon to begin with because it's facing Earth, and then you're only seeing half of that half lit. So this time, I'm just going to shade the other side, but it could have just as easily, I could have flip-flopped these. Okay. I could have had the left side illuminated, I could have had the right side illuminated. We're going to call this a quarter moon. Now here's kind of a funny word. That is a gibbous moon. For a gibbous moon, more than half of the side of the moon facing Earth is illuminated. So I'm going to flip-flop back and forth. I'm going to indicate now the word gibbous comes from the same word which means humped. And so it kind of looks like the illuminated part has a hump on it. That's what gibbous means. So I'm going to draw this like so. Again, the illuminated side could be the right, could be the left. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. So we've got, if we were to repeat this, we've got full moon, we've got new moon, we've got crescent moons, we've got quarter moons, and we've got gibbous moons. Now what determines whether it is on the right or left? If it is a waxing moon, waxing kind of is an old term. We don't use it a lot much anymore, but if you read some of the old poets, they'll talk about love waxing. The amount of illumination is increasing. The right side of the moon will be illuminated. So if you see right here, this would be a waxing gibbous. This would be a waxing crescent. Okay, when the right side of the moon is illuminated, that means that if I were to see the moon the next night, more of it would be illuminated. And the night after that, more of it would be illuminated. That's what a waxing moon would be. If you're not waxing, you're waning. And in that case, the amount of illumination is decreasing night after night. If that's the case, the left side of the moon is illuminated. So you can always tell when you look at the moon, at least from our perspective in the northern hemisphere, whether or not the moon is increasing in illumination or decreasing in illumination. Now what's kind of crazy is that if you're in the southern hemisphere, these ideas would be reversed because you're looking at the moon from a different perspective. So I want you to think about this. How would you draw a waxing crescent? How would you draw a waning crescent? Well, waxing would be the right-hand side. Let's get that. So waxing crescent, we're going to indicate like this. We're going to shade in this side. A waning crescent is going to look like so. Now, how does this relate to moon phases? Why do we see these moons the way we do? Well, let's flip over to a new page on your notes, and let's say we've got the sun somewhere up above the page here. So the direction of the sunlight is down this way, and what we're looking at is going to be the moon's revolution around the Earth. And we're looking down on Earth's North Pole. We've got this super perspective looking down on Earth's North Pole, and we see the moon revolving around the Earth in this fashion, and the sunlight is somewhere up above the page. What type of moon would we see? Well, and this is looking from Earth's perspective. If I'm looking at the moon from Earth here, this first moon here, this is going to be a new moon. We're going to shade in that whole puppy right there. That's going to be a new moon. Pause the video if I'm going too fast. Over here, now this, I want you to understand kind of why this is, and we'll see it in, we'll see it in class when we do some demonstrations. But this is going to be a waxing crescent moon. I kind of flubbed up a little bit there. I hope you'll forgive me. Okay, so we're going to see a sliver of the right-hand side illuminated, viewed from Earth. Right here, this is going to be what we call a first quarter moon. Okay, so I'm going to call this first quarter. Part of the deal is that we're 1/4 of the way through this cycle, and it's also going to be a quarter moon because you're going to see only 1/4 of the moon, so that's why we call it a quarter. We're still going to be increasing in daylight, so this right here is going to be a waxing gibbous. Okay, let's name these here. Waxing crescent. There's going to be a waxing gibbous. And now halfway through the cycle here, we're at a full moon. So I'm going to have the whole portion here that is illuminated down here. That's going to be a full moon. Once I get to a full moon, I can't get any fuller, so I'm going to start waning. I'm going to start losing my illumination. The illumination that's going to remain is going to be on the left-hand side. So here I'm going to start to see shadow encroach upon the right-hand side. This is going to be a waning gibbous. We're back here. The left-hand side is going to be illuminated, so I'm going to shade in the right. This is going to be a last quarter or a third quarter moon. Either is acceptable. Kind of like if you've got a football game, you've got 4 quarters. We're now entering the 4th quarter. And then finally, we're going to have the left-hand side illuminated. Notice we're losing light, and we're only going to have light from the left-hand side. This is going to be, I'm going to move myself over here, get myself out of the way. This is going to be a waning crescent. Then I'm back to where I started from, which is going to be a new moon. So to get all the way around this cycle here, guys, takes about 29.5 days. And to go from here to here takes about a week. To go from here to here takes about a week. To go from here to here takes about a week. To go from here to here takes about a week. What I'd ask that you do here is try a couple websites that are listed on the program here and on the Google Classroom, and then fill out a Google form. Just see if you've kind of picked up what we've got. You can look at your notes if you need to, but see if you can do what you can. We're going to model a lot of this in class when I see you on Thursday, and I hope it goes well for you. Please let me know if you've got any questions.